Clinical trials are the backbone of medicine. They're needed to assess not just the safety of a product, but how well it works, how much we can use, and what the dangers are. Despite this importance, researchers face a ton of hurdles when it comes to these tests. In fact, nearly half of all clinical trials go unpublished, and 1/3 never even make it to the finish line. Dr. Casey Chapman, a gastroenterologist, says these challenges have been especially noticeable in his field.
We have lots of patients in need, but we as gastroenterologists are not trained on how to set up a research center, how to coordinate appropriate research, patient identification, and ultimately the way that research is and has been done for some time in the United States is we wait for that Goldilocks patient to walk into the door that fits perfectly, and it just fits the criteria.
Chapman is the chief medical officer of GI Alliance. He says that waiting for the perfect candidate isn't realistic, but it's an idea that's unfortunately encouraged by the strict inclusion and exclusion criteria of research studies. Many trials have issues finding enough people to enroll in their research because there's such specific standards that need to be met.
For a patient to ultimately be a participant can be difficult, cumbersome, and honestly do a disservice to a patient if no one can be enrolled. And if you're unable to enroll any patients in the trial, a lot of our physicians say, it's just not worth it.
Chapman also notes that for him and his colleagues, research becomes an afterthought in their busy days. Between work and their social lives, any research opportunities get shoehorned into lunchtime.
But when you're talking about trying to fit a patient who has a very small window for inclusion or exclusion, sometimes lunchtime and after work doesn't work for that patient to meet that critical time point. The other thing that we've realized is we're multitasking our clinical research coordinators. They're not just the clinical research coordinator, they become the phlebotomist, they become the clinical trial assistant. They're wearing too many hats. And that can be counterproductive because we need them to focus on our patients and their care to assist us as care providers to identify, engage, have conversations with the patients who we mention clinical trials as a possible treatment option too.
All of these obstacles are behind the high rates of failed trials. But since this research is so pivotal in increasing the health and longevity of his patients, Chapman wanted to find a way to make participation more accessible for people, which would help both the researchers and patients. Earlier this year, he led a partnership between GI Alliance and Iterative Health, a healthcare technology and services company. Together, they've been able to embed clinical trials directly into community clinics instead of forcing patients to spend time and money traveling to a testing facility, which has been a contributor of low participation rates. Chapman says this offers his patients an unprecedented opportunity to try novel, up-and-coming drugs through these trials.
One of the things that I think is changing this is the fact that we're at a bit of an inflection point with the molecules, drugs, assets, whatever you want to call them, that our pharmaceutical partners are wanting to bring to market. Their clinical relevance, their clinical impact on our patient population is just as good as, or arguably better than what we have in our toolbox to treat patients today. And so that gets me really excited because if I can walk into a patient's room with what I have to offer them that's the FDA has approved, it's post-marketed, we have access to it through our payers, and say, not only do we have this, but we also have this too through our clinical research. And understand that clinical research is not saved for a certain patient population who maybe didn't respond to every therapy or doesn't have appropriate financial capabilities, but rather it's part of the normal treatment paradigm, and understand that we have a whole team built to support the patient through their journey, whether they choose to participate with their physician or not.
This partnership is helping to make clinical research a part of the daily conversation at your doctor's appointment. And to further increase accessibility, the initiative has been able to lessen the inclusion criteria, allowing more people to engage in the research.
You have an opportunity to meet the patient where they are, if you will. For example, if you have to meet 18 inclusion criteria, and some of those are time-based, some of those are disease severity-based, the patient may not be sick enough, or they may be too sick, or they can't come off of a medication for a certain amount of time, or it may be that the clinical trial protocol doesn't allow for an extension of therapy if they do not respond for a certain amount of time.
This strict criteria is set up so that researchers can gauge how a drug works in a controlled environment. However, medicine is messy and no two patients are the same. This new trial method rethinks the approach to research, and instead of creating a perfect environment, it sees how the drug performs in the real world.
Now we're seeing a lot of our partners, our pharmaceutical industry partners, saying, we understand that we need to be focused on the fact that patients are more than just a controlled environment for us to meet certain endpoints, but that this is part of the treatment as well. And you guys are now looking at it that way. So we have to be mindful and design our trials like that, to where we can include maybe the mild to moderate patient. They don't have to be severely active, where you may miss an opportunity or they become ill while they're waiting for their opportunity to participate, which is, as a physician, a tough thing to watch a patient go through.
This research is conducted as a double-blind study, which means that neither the physicians nor patients know who's getting the active drug versus the placebo. But since this partnership is centering the patient's experience, participants who aren't responding to their dose after a set number of weeks, usually 12, are given the active drug. When this occurs, they fall into a different section of the study where researchers are still able to get data on secondary endpoints like safety and side effects.
The really nice silver lining to all of that is they get concierge care by a really well-trained research team, and that research team can take care of them for years on the same medication as long as they continue to respond and do well. And so you're really giving that chronic patient a portal for information as well as care. And honestly, there's no out of pocket for the patient, which is just such a nice silver lining for a patient who's probably been through a long journey and quite a bit of cost along the way.
Ultimately, Chapman says that this is giving his patients more options than ever before to figure out how to best treat their issues. He's able to present all the different therapies available to them, both FDA approved and experimental.
This is by no means a sales opportunity. This is an opportunity to educate our patients on what there actually is out there, and to say, look, we have multiple options, but we also have multiple options in a new market that clinical research, honestly, has been redefined in the last 5 to 7 years in gastroenterology. It's all I can speak to, because the trial designs have changed. The placebo rates have decreased. The medications that are being delivered in these trials, efficacy and safety has increased. And so you're getting an opportunity to get access to a medication that could be better than anything we have on the market today, instead of waiting 5 more years to get it. And, I'll speak to just inflammatory bowel disease just to make an example. The best treatment is the one that's used earliest in the treatment journey because of the way the disease acts. So if we can pick the best medication as the first medication or the second medication, we have a lot better chance of having better long-term results.
You can find more information about the GI Alliance and Iterative Health Partnership, as well as Dr. Casey Chapman and all of our guests on our website, radiohealthjournal.org. For more behind the scenes, follow Radio Health Journal on Facebook, Instagram, and X. Our writer-producer is Kristen Farah. Our production manager is Jason Dickey. I'm Greg Johnson.